Hello, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful hotel, and congratulations to the organizers for putting everything together in a very audacious, ambitious project that we're very happy to see is not only coming to fruition, but it's being very successful so far. So, what we're going to do, if this works, nope, there we are. Sorry. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run through some slides and talk to you about the state of play in Greece. This government is now 5 years in power, and I would say one of the proudest moments we felt was last year when the Economist magazine selected Greece as Country of the Year. And that was after the Economist Intelligence Unit had also selected Greece as Economy of the Year for both 2023 and 22. And you can understand and imagine that for a country that dominated world headlines for the wrong reasons a decade ago, this was quite a moment. Now, I want to give you some more data on what has happened and where we're heading from here. You can see the chart on the left. Economic sentiment in the country is now consistently exceeding that of the euro area, and that's sort of the opposite to what happened in the previous decade. And the country's GDP declined significantly, 25% from top to bottom during the crisis, and has been recovering since. And since COVID started, basically, a real GDP has grown over 7 points, which is more than double the euro area average. Of course, we still have a long way to go. The ultimate objective remains converging to Europe and to all the other countries. The basis of the economic philosophy of the government has been and continues to be attracting foreign capital. Why is that the case? It's really simple. The country went through a crisis. The capital stock was depleted. It has a significant investment gap. And of course, it's still the case that national savings are too low, and so most of the capital has to come from outside Greece. FDI hit record highs in 2022. A little bit of a pullback in 23, and we're hoping to make new highs soon. But I would say that despite this, the investment gap remains sizable. You can see, for example, if you look at the hotels, it's still the case that many hotels are in need of renovations. There's still a lot of projects going on, a lot of hotels still being built, and a lot of parts of the country that are still totally unexplored. A more interesting chart is the one on the right. You might recall during the crisis, a lot of people said, well, Greece will never come out unless it devalues its currency. And of course, at the time before the crisis started, Greece was a relatively closed economy. One of the biggest successes and of the untold stories is simply that the export share of GDP more than doubled despite no devaluation. And this is a theme that's been ongoing for a long period of time. It's not just this government, and I would say is quite an optimistic story. If you look at the debt, the country remains with a high level of nominal debt, although little known. The actual level of net nominal debt fell last year and will fall again this year. If you look at debt to GDP, it has declined more than any other country in the world over the past 4 years, and it is projected to continue to decline. We hope to be able to drop below Italy. Bond yields in Greece have actually declined below those of Italy, and as I was checking this morning, they're now 60-odd basis points above those of France, which is, I have to admit, something that I don't think anyone would have expected to happen. It's important to not fall back into the same mistakes of the decade before the crisis. You can see here, at the time, the country lost its competitiveness. Unit labor costs went up more than what was manageable by the economy. We're happy to report that that's not the case today. The unit labor costs remain contained, and we continue to monitor this. And of course, the stock market has done very well, but remains still a small share of GDP. Lots of stuff. If you were to walk out on the street and ask a random person on the street, what's the one thing that this government has done right, they would tell you digitization. So, Ministry for Digital Governance was created in 2019, tasked with digitizing every relation between the state and its citizens. And of course, as any Greek knows in this room, the number of digital transactions has exploded. Probably the turning point was during COVID, when the whole vaccination process from beginning to end was run entirely digital, including the vaccination certificate. And this, of course, is an ongoing thing. The green transition is the story of our times, story of the decade, maybe even longer than that. And here we're blessed as a country with sun and wind. And of course, we are happy to report that renewable energy projects today have been so many that the country ranks fourth in terms of the percent of electricity that's generated by wind and solar. And today, the number of licenses that have already been granted for renewable energy projects are sufficient to cover the whole of the country's needs until 2030. And we still have 2.5 times the number of licenses pending. Sorry, the number of applications pending, which then, you might ask yourself, well, why not just approve every application? The answer is, of course, that if you did that, the price would go to zero and you would have oversupply. The key now is to invest and improve storage and batteries, the connectivity of the network, and of course, the big prize is to connect the country to the electricity grids of other countries, upgrade the link to Italy, connect through the Balkans into Germany, potentially in the future into Ukraine, of course in the south, connect to Egypt, to the Middle East, and that will allow the country to maximize its potential in renewable. A little bit about what lies ahead for the government. In the first term, there was a big emphasis on cutting taxes, on reducing regulation, on cleaning up the banking system, and broadly speaking, those objectives were met. Looking ahead, priority is justice. A lot of business people today would complain that the biggest problem the country has in terms of the business environment is simply a slow justice system. It's not the wrong justice system, it's just very slow. And to speed things up, it requires a lot of different steps. I would highlight the new judicial map that we have that will consolidate a lot of the courts of the country, which are still too small. Digitization will also help, freeing up time, better evaluation and promotion systems. We've had a number of laws passed to intervene, to make things faster, and creating specialized courts, lumping cases together. And all of these things over time should improve things. Another very important objective is fighting tax evasion. This is an ongoing process that started obviously in the previous term. A big part of that is digitization and digital transactions. As you know, today, a lot of stuff is done digitally. A huge project was completed recently, which was the connection of POS machines to cash registers, which basically means when you purchase a good or you pay for your bill at a restaurant in Greece, that information is now immediately transmitted to the tax authorities. And the proprietor can no longer pocket the VAT and pretend that this transaction never happened. There's many other things going on. We're promoting direct payment systems, similar to Venmo in the United States or the Alipay system in China or UPI in India. We have our own system called Iris or Iris. Again, the idea, it's already heavily promoted people to people. It's now obligatory for sole traders, and next year we'll make it obligatory for all commercial transactions. There's a reduction in the use of cash. 500 euro is now the maximum limit for cash, and you're no longer allowed to use cash for real estate transactions. And of course, a lot more targeted audits. Greece now has similar problems to other countries, that it's running out of workers. For a country that had a 28% unemployment rate, this is quite a statement. But this is another big issue that business people complain to us about. However, we can learn from the experience of other countries, and we're lucky in the sense that we still have a relatively low participation rate. The percentage of Greeks that participate in the labor market remain low. And if you look at the pockets of obvious the pools of opportunity. Those are women. We have the third lowest female participation rate in the European Union. Young people, older people, people with disabilities, and of course all those Greeks that left the country during the crisis and should all come back. But again, all of these things require targeted approaches, but they also require the private sector to appreciate that this is going to be part of the solution. Education, we recently passed, for those who don't know, Greece forbid the development of private universities, or rather non-state universities. This has now changed, and we hope to create what is called education tourism. Cyprus, for example, has 6% of its GDP coming from education, and we hope to at least increase that, our share of GDP that comes from education, to 1 or 2%. There's also a big need to reform technical schools. We have great universities, but we have shortages of labor at a more technical level. The green and digital revolutions that I mentioned before are ongoing. I spoke about the need to strengthen storage and batteries and interconnectedness. In the green area, we obviously have the electric mobility transition. We need to build more charging stations. There's a huge challenge which relates to green shipping. It's still not clear how the shipping industry globally will decarbonize, and this is still TBD. We have a lot of stuff going on in carbon capture and storage, and in reforming agriculture, etc. Digital revolution continues. A lot of projects going on, digitizing court documents, digitizing health records. There's now, and then what you do with all this data, if you need to mine the data, digitizing the pension system. But there's also a burgeoning ecosystem, a tech ecosystem in Greece. It's a beautiful country. We're blessed with nice weather, and so setting up a tech company here makes a lot of sense. The role of the government is, of course, to provide the digital infrastructure. There's a lot of new data centers being built, a rush for building data centers, and these should be forthcoming in the coming years. The state, a big priority amongst the people of Greece, is upgrading the healthcare system. This is one of those things that cuts across all countries. I cannot think of a single country that's happy with its healthcare system, and despite the fact that everybody has a different system. So this is a big priority of the government. We have also the divestment of the HFSF, the Hellenic Financial Stability Fund, its stakes in the 4 systemic banks. This is a legacy of the crisis. The government is out of its stake in Alpha Bank, Eurobank, and Piraeus, and still has another 18% stake in the National Bank of Greece to go. The Athens International Airport was listed, did an IPO in the Greek Stock Exchange in early 24, and the objective of the stock exchange itself is to rejoin developed market status either this year or next. There's a lot of people who question, why would you like that? It's sort of a small, would you rather be a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a small pond? The answer is we're part of the European Union, we're part of the euro area, we're a common monetary union, and to the extent that we are supportive of banking and capital markets union, which we are, it would make no sense for Greece to remain an emerging market when its other countries of the currency shares are all developed market. And I'm going to leave you. I was reading yesterday that we now have the largest company in the world, NVIDIA, or rather in the United States, the AI company. And I leave you with the thought of the Prime Minister, who has set up a committee to recommend the government on how to better utilize and introduce AI into the government, into the way the government operates together with the citizens. So thank you very much for your attention. I leave you here. If anyone has any question, or if we have time for a question or two, I'm very happy to answer. Otherwise, we can go on to our next session. Thank you very much. Jan?